Okay, more medium-term implications of lack of sleep. And when I mean lack of sleep, that's lack of quantity, but also quality. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. So if that continues, what I've just mentioned, then our body starts to become more insulin resistant, meaning that when we eat the same food, like I said before, just one night of sleep, we eat the same food that if we had good sleep, then our body responds differently to it, makes our blood sugar more spiky and giving us that roller coaster of getting hangry, low blood sugar dips, high blood sugar spikes. But it also redistributes that weight to the waistline. And that the longer we have lack of sleep, the more severe that gets. And then long term, and I'll talk about that in a second again, long term, that insulin resistance, when our body doesn't respond to food properly anymore, can make us more prone to Alzheimer's and cardiovascular disease and those kinds of things. Short-term lack of sleep leads to inflammation. Medium term makes it even worse. Messes with our immune system more, makes us more prone to autoimmunity. See a lot in the female community that there's more and more autoimmune issues, and lack of sleep. It's just one of the pieces of the puzzle. It's just never one thing, but it is one of it that oftentimes just we don't get enough sleep. I talked about the metabolism and the weight. Obviously, one night of bad sleep, eating the wrong foods, if that continues over and over, it starts to accumulate. It also messes with our stress, our cortisol rhythm throughout the day. I'll be talking about that in a little more detail later. But also it messes with our hormones. And I wanted to just talk a little bit about that. I know you have someone else coming on that is talking about diet for hormones. So I won't be going into too much detail, but in particular, women that are going through, let's say, 40s, late 30s, 40s, early 50s, oftentimes we get to that stage where our hormones are a little bit more volatile and fragile. And especially oftentimes we start to before we get to menopause, our estrogen often starts to increase, making things grow inside us more, things like endometriosis and cysts and fibroids, painful periods, painful breasts before the cycle, but also drops progesterone, which can contribute to infertility and mood swings and being more irritable and making these things grow more. And if that continues, then we have this whole perimenopause chaos where we have hot flashes and our hormones just aren't really working for us anymore, but messing with us. And then once we hit menopause, our hormones just drop off entirely. Now, what research shows is that if we have lack of sleep and that continues on and on, then it actually makes our progesterone even lower. It increases our estrogen even more, and it messes with all of these symptoms that I just mentioned. It makes them a lot worse. So just from that perspective, getting enough sleep might be a really important piece of that puzzle to try and ease your way through perimenopause and towards menopause. For men in particular, testosterone is mostly made during sleep. So oftentimes men, as they get older, their testosterone drops, their libido, they are less energetic. Low testosterone is often a part of the issue. So maybe if that's your case for your partner, then maybe look at their sleep as well. For women, testosterone is a little bit less important related to sleep, but also in certain parts. And as women, we also need testosterone. It helps us build muscle density and be toned, have energy, be productive, motivated, and growth hormone you might have heard of. It helps us just kind of prevent inner aging, keeps us younger from the inside, keeps all of our cells healthier, less wrinkles. So overall, you can see this is quite important for us in the short term, in the next months, years, decade. And then long term, I won't go into detail here because I've already mentioned those long-term implications of sleep. If that then continues over a long time and we constantly have inflammation, we constantly have this insulin resistance where the body doesn't know how to deal with sugars and food that well anymore, then that has been linked to all of these long-term health effects that we kind of think are normal in our society, but that we really don't have to run into. And in particular for sleep, it's also Alzheimer's. Before I mentioned that lymphatic system then drains out any toxins while we are in deep sleep, and also that this amyloid plaque that has been linked to Alzheimer's. We all produce small amounts of that, but it needs to be drained away during sleep. And if that doesn't happen efficiently enough or sufficiently, then it might start accumulating and contribute to problems in the brain long term.